Welcome back to a new video. In this series, we explore the Muses of Greek mythology, the 9 daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne, goddesses of inspiration, arts, and divine memory. This video is a mix about all the 9 muses. The first one we talk about is Calliope. Most people know Calliope as the muse of epic poetry, the one invoked by Homer in the opening lines of the Iliad and the Odyssey. But Calliope is more than a poetic inspiration. She is memory, voice, and the shaping force of narrative itself. She is the whisper behind heroes, the rhythm in every saga, and the divine breath that brings myth to life. Calliope symbolizes epic art and storytelling. Calliope is the eldest and most honored of the 9 muses. She governs epos, long-form heroic poetry that speaks of war, fate, gods, and kings. Her domain isn't just beauty, it's grandeur. When a tale begins with sing, muse, that's her. She brings structure to chaos and meaning to battle cries. She also symbolizes divine voice and eloquence. Calliope's name means beautiful voiced, but her gift isn't just musical, it's persuasive, clear, and commanding. She grants the power to speak with conviction, to shape thought into word and word into legacy. She is invoked not just by poets, but by orators, judges, and even rulers seeking wisdom through words. The last thing she symbolizes is memory and immortality through art. Like all muses, Calliope is a daughter of Mnemosyne, memory. But her memory is eternal. She preserves the deeds of mortals and gods alike, ensuring their stories are told for generations. To be touched by Calliope is to be remembered. Origins and family. Calliope is one of the 9 muses, daughters of Zeus, king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, goddess of memory. She is often depicted as the eldest, the wisest, and the leader of her sisters. The muses were born from 9 nights of union between Zeus and Mnemosyne, each muse representing a different art. But Calliope was the most exalted, often depicted standing beside kings or heroes, guiding them with dignity and calm. In some traditions, she is the mother of Orpheus, the legendary musician whose songs could charm gods and spirits alike. Whether by Apollo or a mortal father, Orpheus inherited her divine gift of voice and poetic soul. Calliope in the world. Calliope doesn't ride a chariot or wield thunder. Her power is subtler, but no less divine. She carries a writing tablet, sometimes a scroll, often a stylus. She may wear a laurel wreath, the sign of poetic triumph. And where she walks, silence follows, the hush before a story begins. She is often seen near rulers and heroes, not leading armies, but shaping the narratives that give them purpose. She doesn't just witness legend. She crafts it. Myths and stories involving Calliope. Myth number 1, the challenge of the daughters of Pyrrhus. 9 mortal sisters once claimed to be greater singers than the muses. Calliope was their opponent in the contest. Her voice rang out with such clarity and power that the challengers were turned into birds, chattering magpies, forever mocked for their vanity. The myth reminds us, inspiration is a gift, not a boast. Myth number 2, Calliope and Orpheus. Calliope, as mother of Orpheus, taught him the art of poetry and song. When he descended into the underworld to retrieve his wife Eurydice, it was her legacy that gave him the voice to move even Hades. His failure wasn't in the music, it was in doubt. The story shows us that even divine talent can falter in the face of fear. Myth number 3, Calliope and Homer. Though not a traditional myth, every invocation of the muse in epic poetry, from Homer to Virgil, is a tribute to Calliope. She is the unseen force in every great saga. Without her, there is no Iliad, no Odyssey, no Aeneid. She is the breath before the first word. Worship and depiction. The muses were worshipped across Greece, especially at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, where springs of poetic inspiration, like the Hippocrene, were said to flow from their steps. Calliope was honored in libraries, courts, and among poets. Her presence was invoked in ceremonies, performances, and even political speech, anywhere words mattered. In art, Calliope is depicted as regal and serene. She may hold a writing tablet, a scroll, or a golden trumpet, symbols of her role as a herald of grandeur. Sometimes she stands among her sisters, but she is always the most commanding, the muse who guides heroes not with strength, but with story. The second one is Clio. Most people know Clio as the muse of history, the one who records events, chronicles kings, and preserves the past. But Clio is more than just a recorder. She is memory, legacy, and the quiet force that ensures nothing is truly forgotten. She is the ink behind civilization, the hand behind every archive, and the divine keeper of time's unfolding truth. Clio symbolizes historical record and truth. Clio's name means to make famous or to proclaim. She governs the telling of history, not just events, but the interpretation of those events. Through her, stories are preserved, and the deeds of mortals and gods are passed from one age to the next. She also symbolizes legacy and continuity. Clio doesn't just look backward. She gives us the thread between past and present, the context that shapes identity, values, and destiny. Without her, there are no lessons, no lineage, no sense of who we are or where we came from. The last thing she symbolizes is memory and preservation. As a daughter of Mnemosyne, memory, Clio holds the power to remember in a way that outlasts time. She immortalizes both glory and shame. Through her, empires endure, or fade, if forgotten. To be seen by Clio is to leave a mark, whether noble or infamous. Origins and family. Clio is one of the 9 muses, the daughters of Zeus, king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory. She is typically counted among the elder muses and often appears in works alongside her sister Calliope, representing the intersection of poetry and fact. Born after 9 nights of union between Zeus and Mnemosyne, each muse represents a unique discipline. Clio's domain is intellectual, but deeply emotional. Her role bridges the heart and the mind. She tells what happened, but also why it mattered. In later traditions, she is sometimes said to be the mother of Hyacinthus, a beautiful youth loved by Apollo, tying her story to tragedy, transformation, and remembrance. Clio in the world. Clio does not sing or dance, her art is precision. She walks with a scroll in hand, sometimes an open book, sometimes a chest of records. She may wear a laurel wreath or a crown of gold, the reward for those whose names echo in time. She is often shown standing tall, composed, observant. She does not embellish or flatter. Her realm is truth, even when truth is painful. She reminds mortals that their choices will echo beyond their lives, written, spoken, remembered. Myths and stories involving Clio. Myth number 1, Clio and Pyrrhus. In one tale, Clio was once punished by Aphrodite for mocking love. The goddess cursed her with an uncontrollable love for a mortal king, Pyrrhus, leading to humiliation and sorrow. The myth reminds us, even those who record events can be swept up in them. Clio may remember history, but she is not immune to its weight. Myth number 2, the founding of history. Though not a myth with battles or gods, Clio's greatest story is civilization itself. Wherever history is written, wherever chronicles are kept, from Homer's catalogs of ships to Herodotus' scrolls, Clio is there. Her influence turns memory into legacy and detail into truth. Myth number 3, Clio and the hero's name. In some traditions, Clio is called upon at the end of great tales, not to tell the story, but to ensure it is known. She bestows fame, Clio's, the everlasting reputation. It is said that without Clio, even the greatest hero would vanish like dust. To speak a name is to give it life, and Clio is the one who keeps that breath going. Worship and depiction. The Muses were worshipped throughout Greece, particularly at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, sacred sites where poets, historians, and artists sought divine inspiration. Clio was especially honored in places of learning, libraries, academies, and temples of knowledge. She was invoked by historians, teachers, and anyone who sought to preserve truth. In art, Clio is depicted with scrolls, books, or tablets, often seated calmly, sometimes pointing to a globe or unrolling a parchment. Her expression is focused, contemplative, not romantic, but resolute. She is not loud, but she is never silent. Through her, the past has a voice. The next one is Erato. Most people know Erato as the muse of love poetry, the one who stirs hearts, moves pens, and whispers verses laced with passion. But Erato is more than romance. She is longing, beauty, vulnerability, and the courage to feel deeply and speak truly. She is the gentle spark behind sonnets, the rhythm of desire, and the muse who reminds us, love is not weakness. It is art. Erato symbolizes romantic poetry and desire. Erato's name means lovely or desired, and she embodies the sweet yet powerful force of romantic expression. She inspires poems of courtship, passion, heartbreak, and joy, not just physical love, but emotional truth. Where love meets language, Erato is present. She also symbolizes beauty through emotion. Her art is not just about appearances, it's about what moves us. Erato brings elegance to longing and grace to grief. She gives poets the ability to reveal their hearts without shame, turning vulnerability into strength. The last thing she symbolizes is harmony of heart and voice. Erato connects music and emotion. She often holds a lyre, a symbol of her melodic nature, and is associated with songs that soothe, stir, or seduce. Through her, feeling becomes melody, and melody becomes memory. Origins and family. Erato is one of the 9 muses, daughters of Zeus, king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, goddess of memory. She is traditionally associated with lyric poetry, especially works of love and intimacy. Born from 9 nights of divine union, each muse carries a different aspect of human creativity. Erato's place is among the most personal, the inward, emotional world expressed outward through rhythm and rhyme. In some traditions, Erato is also linked to marriage and harmony between lovers. She represents not just the thrill of love, but its emotional depth and enduring beauty. Erato in the world. Erato walks not in courts or battlefields, but in gardens, under moonlight, beside rivers. She wears a crown of myrtle and roses, sacred plants of love. She may hold a golden lyre or a small bow and arrows, a nod to her connection with Eros, god of love. Her presence is quiet but undeniable. She is felt in the stillness between words, the blush before a confession, the ache in a farewell. Where love lives, joyful or tragic, Erato listens. Myths and stories involving Erato. Myth number 1, the lyric muse. Though no major standalone myths focus solely on Erato, she is invoked by ancient poets in their works of love. In Apollonius of Rhodes' Argonautica, the narrator calls on Erato when the story turns to Jason and Medea's doomed romance. This invocation signals a shift from adventure to emotion, from action to intimacy. It shows her role in guiding not the sword, but the soul. Myth number 2, the Song of Love and Death. Some poets believed Erato guided those who wrote love elegies, poems of mourning and affection combined. In these verses, joy and sorrow are inseparable. Erato teaches that love does not end, it lingers in memory, in art, in the pain of absence. Myth number 3, Erato and the other muses. Among her sisters, Erato often stands beside Euterpe, muse of music, and Polyhymnia, muse of sacred song. Together, they represent the range of feeling, from the sensual to the spiritual. Erato's love is not confined to romance. It can be divine, platonic, or tragic. But always, it is real. Worship and depiction. The muses were honored across the ancient Greek world, especially at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus. Poets, musicians, and lovers alike sought Erato's inspiration, hoping to find the words for feelings too big to hold alone. In art, Erato is often shown as young and graceful, with a warm, thoughtful expression. She may carry a lyre, a tambourine, or a small scroll of verses. Surrounded by roses, doves, or playful erodes, her imagery reflects both the innocence and intensity of love. The fourth one is Euterpe. Most people know Euterpe as the muse of music and lyric poetry, the one who brings melody to the soul and rhythm to the heart. But Euterpe is more than sound. She is harmony, emotion, and the power of beauty woven through tone. She is the unseen hand guiding fingers over strings, the voice behind every song that moves you. Euterpe symbolizes music and melody. Euterpe's name means she who brings delight, and her domain is the joy of sound, music that stirs, calms, excites, or heals. She governs not just any music, but lyric poetry, the ancient tradition where poetry and music were one. She is the muse of the flute, of stringed instruments, and of the voice itself. Joy and emotional expression. Euterpe doesn't simply create music, she translates feeling into sound. She reminds us that music is a language beyond words. She gives sorrow its lament, love its serenade, and celebration its chorus. Where the heart cannot speak, she sings. Inspiration through art. Music has always been a sacred channel for memory, prayer, and passion. Euterpe connects the earthly and the divine through tones and notes. She inspires not just musicians, but anyone seeking to express their inner world outwardly. In her presence, we remember, creativity isn't indulgence. It's communication. Origins and family. Euterpe is one of the 9 muses, daughters of Zeus, the king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory. Born from 9 nights of divine union, each muse reflects a different part of the human spirit. Euterpe represents the music of the heart, and the emotions that pour forth when sound and soul collide. In some ancient sources, she is said to have invented the double-piped flute, or at least blessed it with divine purpose. She is also associated with rivers, often appearing near flowing water, as if music itself were a current moving through the world. Euterpe in the world. Euterpe doesn't shout or command. She hums. She plays. She waits in quiet corners until someone picks up an instrument, begins to hum, or feels the stirrings of a song. She's usually depicted holding a flute or aulos, sometimes surrounded by other instruments like the lyre or panpipes. She wears a crown of flowers, often accompanied by flowing robes and a serene, open expression. Her power isn't in thunder or judgment. It's in what music does, how it calms chaos, how it unites strangers, how it moves crowds without a single word. Myths and stories involving Euterpe. Myth number 1, Euterpe in the birth of the flute. In some traditions, Euterpe is said to have invented or perfected the aulos, a double flute with haunting, emotional tones. She gave it to humanity as a gift, a way to give voice to feelings too strong for speech. Even gods were enchanted by the sound. This myth reminds us, some truths can only be sung. Myth number 2, the sirens in the Muses' music. While not directly in the myth, Euterpe's influence is often contrasted with that of the sirens. Where the sirens use music to seduce and destroy, Euterpe uses it to uplift and soothe. She reminds us that sound is a tool, and intention is everything. Myth number 3, the muse of the banquet. Euterpe was often invoked during feasts and symposia in ancient Greece. Not just for entertainment, but for harmony. Music under her blessing created connection, balance, and joy. She helped make gathering not just social, but soulful. Worship and depiction. The Muses were worshipped across Greece, particularly at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, where springs of inspiration flowed. Temples, groves, and sacred spaces were devoted to them, places where musicians and poets could seek their favor. Euterpe was especially revered by musicians, bards, and poets, anyone who touched the emotional world through sound. In art, she appears gentle and radiant, often holding her flute or standing amidst instruments. Her face reflects serenity, the kind that comes when music flows freely. Even today, every musician who feels the moment where art overtakes effort, that's Euterpe. The next one is Melpomene. Most people know Melpomene as the muse of tragedy, the one who inspires the deepest, most sorrowful expressions of the human soul. But Melpomene is more than sorrow. She is catharsis. She is emotional truth, the echo in a silent theater, and the voice that dares to weep when others look away. She doesn't glorify pain, she gives it meaning. Melpomene symbolizes tragedy and emotional truth. Melpomene's domain is dramatic tragedy, the kind that unfolds on a stage or in life, where fate and flaw collide. She reminds us that pain is not weakness, and loss is not meaningless. In her stories, heroes fall, but they fall nobly. Her gift is the story that breaks you open, and then leaves you whole again. Catharsis through art. The Greeks believed in catharsis, the emotional cleansing that comes from witnessing tragedy. Melpomene brings grief to the surface, not to drown us in sorrow, but to heal. She shows that expression is survival, and that tears can be a form of wisdom. Dignity in suffering. In Melpomene's world, even suffering has a voice. She does not silence despair, she dignifies it. She grants structure to chaos, beauty to anguish, and voice to the voiceless. Her tragedy is not about despair. It's about truth. Origins and family. Melpomene is one of the 9 muses, daughters of Zeus, king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, goddess of memory. She was not originally associated with tragedy, her name means to sing or the one who celebrates with dance and song. But over time, her role evolved into one of depth, gravity, and dramatic art. Some myths suggest she once shared qualities with her sister Euterpe, the muse of music. But where Euterpe followed joy, Melpomene followed solemnity. She became the patron of tragic poets, playwrights, and actors, anyone who gave voice to the darker side of life. Melpomene in the world. Melpomene is often depicted wearing a tragic mask, the open-mouthed face of grief and grandeur. She may hold a sword or club, symbols of violent fate, or wear a crown of cypress, the tree of mourning in remembrance. She stands tall, regal, never collapsing beneath sorrow, but carrying it with power. Her stage is the theater. Her script is human suffering. Her language is pain turned into poetry. Where she walks, silence listens. Where she speaks, hearts break, and then understand. Myths and stories involving Melpomene. Myth number 1, Melpomene and Dionysus. Theater was sacred to Dionysus, god of wine, madness, and art, but it was Melpomene who gave tragedy its shape. Together, their energies formed the ritual of theater, joy and despair, revelry and ruin. Their partnership reminds us that art comes from every emotion, and the deepest ones often cut the clearest. Myth number 2, Tragedy and the Fates. Melpomene was often associated with the fates, particularly in tragic plays. She didn't cause doom, but she gave it structure. She showed audiences that destiny, no matter how cruel, had a pattern, a shape to learn from, not fear. Myth number 3, the fall of greatness. While Melpomene doesn't appear in specific heroic myths, her spirit haunts every tragic tale. Achilles' wrath, Oedipus' downfall, Antigone's defiance, all are shaped by her influence. She teaches that greatness is not measured by victory, but by how one meets the end. Worship and depiction. Melpomene, like all the muses, was worshipped at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, where springs of inspiration flowed from sacred ground. In ancient theaters, actors would pray to her before a performance, hoping to channel her power. In art, Melpomene is shown with the tragic mask, high boots worn by actors, a dramatic gown, and often a sword at her side. She is solemn, not sorrowful, majestic in her grief. She reminds us that pain, when shaped into story, becomes something more than just suffering. Even today, she lives in the plays that haunt us, the films that leave us breathless, and the moments in art where beauty is born from heartbreak. The next one is Polyhymnia. Most people know Polyhymnia as the muse of sacred hymns and religious poetry, a figure of quiet grace and solemn power. But Polyhymnia is more than just devotion in song. She is silence that speaks. She is divine focus, contemplative stillness, and the spirit of sacred art. Where the other muses sing, Polyhymnia listens. And in that silence, she hears the voice of the divine. Polyhymnia symbolizes sacred song and spiritual devotion. Polyhymnia's domain is not celebration, but reverence. She inspires hymns sung in temples, chants whispered in sanctuaries, and the solemn rituals that connect mortals to the divine. She is the breath before prayer, the pause before sacred speech. Her presence elevates words into offerings, meditation and inner discipline. Unlike her more exuberant sisters, Polyhymnia is serious, serene, and inward-looking. She is the muse of sacred restraint, of channeling energy not outward in performance, but inward in intention. Her power isn't loud. It's enduring. She reminds us, stillness can be strength. Divine communication and mystery. Polyhymnia's influence extends beyond music. She is often associated with geometry, agriculture, and even the memory of divine law, things structured, eternal, and meaningful. She speaks to those who seek connection with something higher. Her gift is revelation, not of noise, but of understanding. Origins and family. Polyhymnia is one of the 9 muses, born from the union of Zeus, king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, goddess of memory. Her name means many hymns, and her domain reflects not just quantity, but depth. She is often considered the most pious of the muses, frequently appearing in myths and art with a downcast gaze, finger to her lips, or deep in thought. She embodies spiritual inspiration, less about performance, more about presence. In some traditions, she is credited as the mother of Triptolemus, by Kymos or by divine conception, the agricultural hero associated with Demeter, linking her to the life-giving cycle of earth and ritual. Polyhymnia and the world. Polyhymnia is rarely seen with instruments or masks. Instead, she's often portrayed in long flowing robes, veiled or draped, sometimes with a pensive expression, hand to chin or lips, the classic thinker's pose. She is the image of contemplation and devotion. While her sisters dance or recite, Polyhymnia stands still. She is invoked in sacred ceremonies, during rites of passage, and in spaces where the human meets the divine. She may not speak often, but when she does, her words echo in the soul. She's also associated with oratory, history, and even geometry, the sacred patterns of the universe, reminding us that truth is found not just in chaos, but in order, too. Myths and stories involving Polyhymnia. Myth number 1, Polyhymnia and the sacred temples. Polyhymnia was especially honored in temples dedicated to Apollo and the gods of prophecy and ritual. Priests and priestesses called upon her for divine clarity and calm, seeking her quiet strength to carry out sacred duties. She was the muse of those who served, not for glory, but for truth. Myth number 2, Polyhymnia and Triptolemus. In some myths, Polyhymnia is the mother of Triptolemus, the hero who spreads the secrets of agriculture to humankind. If true, she is not just a muse of spirit, but also of survival. Her influence nurtures not just souls, but civilizations. Myth number 3, the muse of memory and mystery. While no major myth centers solely on her, Polyhymnia is felt in every sacred myth, in the reverent tones of Orphic hymns, in the stillness before a prophecy, and in the quiet strength of those who serve the gods without need for recognition. Her story is not one of drama, but of dignity. Worship and depiction. Polyhymnia was worshipped alongside her sisters at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, near the sacred springs of artistic inspiration. She was especially revered by poets, priests, and philosophers, those whose work required stillness, discipline, and clarity. In art, she is the very image of solemn grace, often depicted with a veil, hand to mouth or chest, her posture composed, thoughtful. Sometimes she leans on a pillar, lost in contemplation. She is not flamboyant, but unmistakably powerful. She is the muse of devotion, of stillness, of meaning made sacred. The 7th one is Terpsichore. Most people know Terpsichore as the muse of dance, the one whose name literally means delight and dance. But Terpsichore is more than graceful movement. She is rhythm. She is flow. She is the heartbeat of the muses, the one who turns music into motion and passion into poetry through the body. When a song makes your soul want to move, that's her. She is joy in form, elegance in energy, and beauty that refuses to stand still. Terpsichore symbolizes dance and movement. Terpsichore is the divine source of dance, not just as performance, but as expression. She governs movement that tells stories, emotions that speak through motion. In her, body and soul move as one. She inspires ballets, folk dances, rituals, anything where the body becomes language. Musicality and joyful rhythm. Though other muses oversee song or instruments, Terpsichore is their echo in movement. She doesn't just inspire dancers, she embodies musical flow. She teaches that to move with music is to feel it fully. She is the joy of rhythm, the muse of those who don't just hear the beat, but become it. Celebration, passion, and play. Terpsichore brings lightness, spontaneity, and emotional release. Where polyhymnia is solemn, Terpsichore is exuberant. Where calliope builds grandeur, Terpsichore brings delight. She reminds us, not all art must be serious. Some art sets you free. Origins and family. Terpsichore is one of the 9 muses, born of Zeus, king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, goddess of memory. As with all the muses, she emerged from divine union and the essence of creative thought. Her name, Terpsichore, comes from the Greek terpsis, delight, and choros, dance or chorus. She is often invoked in performances, theater, and festivals, anywhere movement and music blend into art. Some traditions say she's the mother of the sirens, whose haunting songs could enchant sailors, linking her not only to dance, but to musical seduction and danger. In others, she's said to be the mother of Linos, a musician killed by Heracles, showing the bittersweet nature of art, beautiful, but not always safe. Terpsichore in the world. Terpsichore is almost always shown in motion, or just before it. In art, she often holds a lyre, connecting her to music, or appears mid-step, robes flowing, head tilted in graceful anticipation. She may be seated, but never still for long. She moves through the world in rhythm, turning temples into theaters, songs into steps, and divine inspiration into performance. She is beloved not just by dancers, but by choreographers, actors, and anyone who knows that bodies speak. Myths and stories involving Terpsichore. Myth number 1, the Muse of Sirens. Some myths claim Terpsichore gave birth to the sirens, creatures whose beauty and music lured sailors to their doom. If true, it suggests that dance and song aren't just joy, they can also enchant, overwhelm, even destroy. Art, like water, must be navigated carefully. Myth number 2, dance as divine celebration. While not tied to a single myth, Terpsichore was often invoked in choral dances held during religious festivals. She brought structure to these sacred performances, ensuring they honored the gods not just with sound, but with movement that mirrored celestial harmony. Myth number 3, the inspiration of joy. In many stories, when the muses appear to mortals, it's Terpsichore who brings laughter, dancing, and relief. She's the muse who reminds heroes that life isn't only battles and sorrow, it's also rhythm, celebration, and dance around the fire. Worship and depiction. Like her sisters, Terpsichore was honored on Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, places sacred to the arts. She was especially celebrated in choral festivals and theatrical performances, often alongside Thalia and Melpomene, the muses of comedy and tragedy. In art, she is depicted as light-footed, youthful, and graceful. She may hold a lyre, a tambourine, or simply appear with flowing robes mid-dance. Her posture is always expressive, never rigid, never still. She is the spirit of the stage, the festival, the rehearsal room, and the dance floor. The 8th one is Thalia. Most people know Thalia as the muse of comedy, the one who holds the laughing mask, whose name means flourishing or blooming. But Thalia is more than just laughter. She is joy as an art form. She is the triumph of cleverness, the healing power of humor, and the spark that reminds us not to take life, or ourselves, too seriously. She is the divine voice that says, "Even the gods laugh." Thalia symbolizes comedy and theatrical wit. Talia presides over comedic theater, from farce and satire to clever banter and slapstick. But her comedy isn't just for laughs. It's survival. She uses humor to deflate ego, expose foolishness, and deliver truth in disguise. A well-timed joke, in her hands, becomes divine commentary. Joy, lightness, and renewal. Laughter is life-affirming, and Talia embodies that. She reminds us that joy is not a distraction from the serious, it's a way through it. After tragedy, we laugh. After hardship, we smile again. That spark of return, of blooming after the storm, is Talia's gift. Celebration and social connection. As the muse of festive comedy, Talia inspires choruses, dialogues, and plays meant to be shared. She connects us to one another, through humor, through common folly, through the sheer ridiculousness of being human. Origins and family. Talia is one of the 9 muses, born from Zeus and Mnemosyne, the embodiment of memory. From memory comes expression, from expression, healing. And Talia is the muse who turns memory into mirth. She is often paired with Melpomene, the muse of tragedy, a reminder that comedy and tragedy are 2 sides of the same mask. Together, they define the ancient stage. Some traditions say Talia bore the caravans, ecstatic dancers and attendants of the gods, through her union with Apollo, further linking her to celebration and rhythm. Talia and the world. Talia doesn't need a throne or a temple. She lives where people laugh, in the streets, the theaters, the taverns, and festivals. She carries the comedic mask, crowned with ivy or wildflowers, symbols of festivity and life. In art, she's shown with a shepherd's staff or flute, connecting her to rustic comedy and the joy of the countryside. She is the muse closest to the people, reminding even kings and heroes that they, too, are human, and occasionally ridiculous. Myths and stories involving Talia. Myth number 1, the muse of comedy and satire. While there's no single myth where Talia stars, she is ever present in ancient theater. Comedic poets and playwrights like Aristophanes invoked her before their works, seeking her blessing for satire that could mock politicians, gods, and even the audience itself. With Talia, nothing is too sacred to be laughed at, and that's the point. Myth number 2, Talia and the Festival of Dionysus. Talia was honored during festivals for Dionysus, god of wine, theater, and ecstasy. In the city Dionysia of Athens, comic plays followed tragedies, a ritual balance. Talia wasn't just relief after sorrow, she was a divine necessity, proving that life continues, and that joy must have its place. Myth number 3, Talia and Apollo. In some stories, Talia shares a child or a dance with Apollo, the god of music and harmony. Their union symbolizes the connection between wit and wisdom, between humor and clarity. Because sometimes, the funniest truths are also the most profound. Worship and depiction. Talia was worshipped with her sisters at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, where the sacred springs of creativity flowed. She was especially honored in theaters and festivals, where her spirit lived in every jest, laugh, and applause. In statues and paintings, Talia is bright-eyed and smiling. She holds the comic mask, wears a garland of ivy, and often stands in a relaxed, playful posture, approachable, lively, real. She's the muse of the moment when the audience erupts in laughter, not because the world is perfect, but because they've remembered it's still worth enjoying. The last one is Urania. Most people know Urania as the muse of astronomy, the one who charts the stars and contemplates the cosmos. But Urania is more than a stargazer. She is wonder, logic, and celestial beauty. She is the mapmaker of the heavens, the whisper behind every equation, and the divine spark that leads us to ask, what lies beyond? Urania symbolizes astronomy and cosmic order. Urania's domain is the night sky, but not in myth or metaphor alone. She rules the real stars, the planets, and their movements. She inspires astronomers, philosophers, and anyone who looks upward in search of truth. With her compass and globe, she turns chaos into charts, aligning the mysteries of the heavens with reason. She also symbolizes divine wisdom and rational beauty. Urania represents knowledge that is both precise and poetic. She teaches that the universe is not random, but rhythmic, mathematical, divine. She is the harmony of the spheres, the quiet mind behind complex thoughts, the elegance in every orbit and formula. The last thing she symbolizes is the bridge between heaven and earth. To invoke Urania is to seek clarity, not just of sky, but of soul. She invites mortals to see patterns in the stars, and by extension, in themselves. To her, study is sacred. Every calculation is an offering. Every question, a prayer. Origins and family. Urania, like her 8 sisters, is a daughter of Zeus and Mnemosyne, born of the union between divine will and memory itself. Her name means Heavenly One, and she is just that, the Muse of the heavens. She is often considered one of the most philosophical muses, closely aligned with Apollo, god of reason and prophecy. While some myths associate her with prophecy through the stars, she is more concerned with observation than divination, inspiring knowledge through what is, not what might be. Urania and the world. Urania doesn't dwell in temples or theaters. She is found in observatories, in open fields, and in the quiet stillness of night. She carries a celestial globe, a staff or compass, and sometimes wears a cloak adorned with stars. Her gaze is always upward, focused, serene, infinite. She is not loud like Talia, nor dramatic like Melpomene. Her power lies in stillness. In data. In the deep peace of understanding how small, and how miraculous, we are. Myths and stories involving Urania. Myth number 1, Urania and the philosophers. While Urania does not have individual myths like some of her sisters, she was revered by ancient scholars. Philosophers like Pythagoras and Plato viewed her as the muse of universal laws, the force behind geometry, music, and astronomy. She doesn't tell stories, she reveals truths. And in her truths, we glimpse the divine. Myth number 2, Urania and the harmony of the spheres. In mystical traditions, Urania is connected to the idea that the planets and stars create a silent music, a harmony of movement and order. This music of the spheres was not audible, but intellectual. It inspired both mathematicians and mystics, and Urania stood at the center, conducting the symphony of the cosmos. Myth number 3, Urania and navigation. Sailors of the ancient world looked to Urania when navigating by starlight. She guided explorers, wanderers, and seekers, reminding them that the sky is not just beautiful, but functional. To follow the stars was to follow her. Worship and depiction. Urania was worshipped alongside her sisters at Mount Helicon and Mount Parnassus, where springs of inspiration flowed. She was honored not just by poets, but by scientists, astrologers, and philosophers, anyone who studied the sky. In art, Urania appears calm and focused. She wears a starry robe or a crown of celestial symbols. She holds a globe, a compass, or a stylus. Her eyes are wide with knowing, but also with wonder. She is the balance between logic and awe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's another muse, deity, or myth you'd like us to explore, let us know in the comments.